Joining us to discuss the issues attached to the protests in African Affairs analyst Alester Wilcox. Alester, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Good afternoon for having me. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, Alester, what were the main factors you think driving the recent hunger protests in Nigeria, and how have these factors evolved over time, if they've changed at all?
Well, sincerely, if you ask me, I would think that I see, in this particular protest, I see more of politics playing than the real issues we have on ground. I know blue well that, like everybody have said, everybody's have a right, the democratic have been able to complain at any point in time. And I see more of politics playing out, but that is not to say the fact that there are no legitimate reasons why people should protest as to what is happening. And I have said and said clearly, if you want to protest, there must be the issues and then the end point, what are we expected to come out of the protest. But sincerely, I do not see any synergy between what you are protesting for and what your end solution is, what solution you're looking at for. You know, I have not seen any articulated plan to that extent. All I see is some various groups having their own agenda, points of demand, which for me does not make much of a corporate sense as to if there has to be an engagement, what are we engaging and how are we, what are the processes to get those things resolved. I think for me, it's more of a political protest than a legitimate economic protest.
Okay, so demands and resolutions aside, how have you seen the Nigerian government and the security forces' response to the protests? How do you think this has affected the way people see the government?
Like I said, I don't want to give pass mark or failure to either parties, but I think there were a lot of restraint because the government recognized the fact that everybody have a right to protest. The government recognized the fact that they have a responsibility to maintain law and order even when people are protesting. So while the government tried as much as they can to appeal to the protesters or to the organizers not to protest, they also made room for there to be peaceful protests without infringing on the rights of other people. Remember, there is no right that is absolute in our constitution. Where your own rights ends, that's where my own rights stand. So if you have a right to protest, I also have a right not to protest. And if you are protesting, your protest should not infringe on my own rights not to protest and to go about my own legitimate businesses. So I think the government tried to balance that act, even though they don't want the protest. No government wants protest, so they try to dissuade the protesters and also try to maintain a balance between the protesters and non-protesters. So I will commend them on that. But you can see what happens thereafter. Where in some part, where I say politics is at play, where in some part of the country, the protest went wild. And today, I just had you interviewed somebody from Jos, a person in Plateau State. We saw what happened there. We saw what happened in Kano. We saw what happened in Kaduna. We saw what happened even Borno State, that everybody that is the picking of a point of reference as far as good governance is concerned in Nigeria. We use Borno State as a point of reference. Yes, there was violent protest in Borno State. So that goes to underscore that it is beyond economic reasons why people are protesting. Because, I mean, look at what happened in Jos. Look at what happened in Kano, Kaduna. Is that economic? I mean, to the point of begin to hoist a foreign nation flag and begin to call for military intervention. So that has been, so I think the government has the responsibility to maintain law and order while guaranteeing the right of every individual to either protest or not to protest. So I would just leave it at that there was an equilibrium in responses.
Yes, there have been news with governors telling about the amount of loss that they have experienced during this process. But let's look at the world wave of protests currently. There's so many protests going on, especially here in Africa. We've had the Kenyan instance. We've also had Bangladesh recently, which resulted in the PM resigning and the army, if I'm not mistaken, filling in that vacuum for the meantime. taking a look at Nigeria and the protests currently, let's talk about the consequences of these protests for the Nigerian social cohesion and also the stability, especially in terms of intergroup relations and trust in institutions. What's your thought on that?
Sadly, and very sadly, Nigeria is not a united country. Very sadly, Nigeria is a united country. So Nigeria cannot present united front in terms of making a demand as to what they want to do or what they don't want to do. So there cannot be that cohesion like we saw in Bangladesh or that we saw in Kenya or in other parts of the country. Because that cohesion might not just be there. So Nigerian doing that line would be more destructive than achieving the purpose. Now look at the Bangladesh case. The purpose was very clear, and they were not mixing up with any other thing. They said repeal a certain law that gives rights, 30% of jobs to certain people. And they all went out for it. Everybody that was affected went out for it. Nobody said, I am northern Bangladesh, I'm eastern Bangladesh, I'm west southern. Everybody went for it. And they achieved results. So, but in Nigeria, like I just said, I remember NSAS. The North didn't protest at NSAS. The North didn't protest, but the South did. Now, this current protest, the Southeast stayed aloof. They didn't even lift up a finger. Rather, they were dancing and either casting aspersion on everybody. The Southwest did not, apart from Lagos. But the North became very, very hot. So that shows that there's no cohesion. So if there is, for us to have any meaningful protest, it must be something that goes across every region, and it doesn't. So right now, it breeds more mistrust. Because tomorrow, now they will say the North is protesting because a Northerner was not the president, like it was when NSAS came, because it was a Northerner, so the North did not participate. Now the story will be because the Southerner president, that is why they didn't participate, that's why the South did not participate. And so, how long are we going to continue in this trajectory of North-South divide? So, as far as I'm concerned, we are not a nation, and we are not working hard to be a nation. And that's one of my pain. So, protests like this will have that sectional coloration, religious coloration. It will not achieve the main point. And the worst aspect of it is that most of the promoters of these protests or these agitations are all foreign-based. They are based abroad. They are not at home. They will be abroad and instigating people, to do certain things at home. For instance, I'm not sure somebody in Nigeria will have proposed that people in Kano and Kaduna should go and carry Russian flag. I'm not sure it's coming from Nigeria. It's not someone from Nigeria that will have made that proposition. So it must be somebody that is abroad, remoting things in Nigeria, that will say go and start carrying Russian flag. So we are not a united country, so we can never have a united. No matter how noble the idea is, no matter how noble the subject is, we can never have a united protest. Rather, it will be this sectional protest and sectional interest, political interest, and at any point it will fizzle out. I think we need a better approach in holding our government accountable. Yes, government needs to be held accountable. And when I say government to be held, I'm not talking about the federal government alone. I'm talking about all tiers of government must be held accountable to deliver to the people what the people rightly deserve to be delivered to. And that is when we can make a better progress. You can protest in your local government. You can protest in your state. You can protest in your state, in your local government. That is when protest will be effective. You know what is wrong in the local government. You can protest there. Even if you want the chairman to go, you can protest until the chairman leaves. So that is so you don't just move to the federal when you are not solving the local problem. And we're not united to have a federal kind of protest that can cut across everybody and achieve the same result. It won't happen now.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Wilcox. You've said plenty and your input is well noted. Thank you very much for joining us on this afternoon's news. Thank you.
It's always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.